Tell me why my mortgage just went up $1,000 because of escrow's mistake in calculations.
Has anyone on here ever had almost a 50% increase in their monthly mortgage due to escrow?
If you're not careful, your dream home could turn into a financial trap, just like the homeowners in today's video who are now buried in mortgage payments they can't afford. If you've ever been told that your mortgage payment will never change, pay very close attention to this next clip.
I really thought that if I paid my mortgage payments in full and on time every month, that I wouldn't lose my house. That's not exactly what's happening. Our escrow analysis finally came the morning of my 40th birthday. I'm in the bed drinking my coffee at an antebellum home in Natchez, Mississippi, and I get an email, and I'm like, I shouldn't open this like on my 40th birthday, whatever. But I've been waiting for it. I didn't think it was going to be anything. I thought it was going to be like no big deal, like no change. I open it, $3,700, second year in a row, shortage. Our mortgage payment will now be $2,700 a month, which is $600 more than it was supposed to be when we took out the loan. Isn't that fun? Yeah. I can't pay it. I mean, like, we can't pay it. It's insurance. Our insurance is going up $400, annually. So I called my insurance agent today, and she was like, okay, so that was last year, because like they did that like for the previous year. So she was like, okay, that was last year, but I did get yours a couple days ago for this year, the renewal, and it's going to be going up another $300 this year.
Let's talk about why this might be happening. Mortgage payments can go up when your escrow account doesn't have enough money in it. This usually covers things like property taxes and homeowners insurance. Every year, your lender does something called an escrow analysis. That just means that they check to see if they've collected enough money from you to pay for the taxes and insurance. Now, if those costs went up and they didn't collect enough, they raise your monthly payment to catch up. A $3,700 escrow shortage is wild. And on top of that, a $600 monthly increase is a lot for most people. I'm glad she called her insurance agent, but I would also recommend that she shops around with other companies. Now, just because you've been with a company for many years does not mean you're getting the best rate. You don't owe loyalty to any company. So at least once a year, you should be getting quotes from other insurance providers. You might be able to get the same coverage for less. What would you do if your mortgage went up by $600 per month? Would you consider switching insurance companies, or would you do something else? Let me know in the comments. There's something she reveals in this next clip that changes everything, including how you might see your situation. So I need you to brace yourself.
If it went up $300 last year and we're at $3,700 shortage, even if like I pay the shortage in full now to keep the thing the same, the payment the same, we're just gonna have another $3,700 shortage again next year because insurance is still going up again, $300 again. I'm calling the mortgage company tomorrow. I'm depressed, like, obviously. I'm unmotivated to do anything. I'm not getting things done. I need to call a realtor to find out what needs to go on because, like, June 1st is going to come and, like, I'm not going to have $2,700 to give them. I mean, I'll have to. I don't have a choice. Like, I pay. When I have a payment due, I pay it 100% in full on the due date. No exceptions. It will be paid. Period. Then I'll have to pay for like all the selling the house junk. Like fixing anything, and might have to sell this beautiful house and get a smaller one. When we bought this house, like our first house that we lived in for 10 years, my last payment on that mortgage was less than $1,000. So I don't know if you have any comments or, nice, mean, whatever, or like what can I do? Tell me what to say to the mortgage company. Tell me what to say to my insurance agent if I have to talk to her again. Tell me what to say to a realtor. I don't even know what realtor I'm going to use. Have you ever experienced anything like this before? Do your thing, TikTok.
What really stood out to me is the fact that her first mortgage was under $1,000. That's very rare these days, and it makes me wonder what changed. So maybe the family outgrew the home and needed more space, or maybe they bought more house than they could comfortably afford. I do appreciate that she's being open and asking for feedback because it takes a lot to share your personal financial struggles online. A lot of the comments were recommending that she shop around for home insurance like I suggested. That might not fix everything, but it could help lower her payment. Do you think she should sell the house, or is there something else that she could do first? Let me know in the comments. A lot of people believe mortgage companies aren't always honest, and this next clip just might prove their point.
Tell me why my mortgage just went up $1,000 because of escrow's mistake in calculations. So sometime last year, escrow cut us a check because we were paying too much into our escrow account, which that money was really nice, especially when you're not expecting it. But now our escrow found out there was an issue and we have to pay $1,000 more for our mortgage. Previously, when escrow said that we were paying too much into the escrow account, when they cut us a check, they also cut a mortgage payment, which is nice, right? But now obviously it's backfired and we have to pay way more than we have ever paid. Luckily, they did say that if we remove the property tax from our escrow, that our payment will go down. So I think that's what we're gonna do. But escrow, keep your days.
So first she got a refund from escrow, now there's a shortage. That doesn't sound right and something probably wasn't calculated correctly. Usually one of two things causes this. Either her property taxes increased or her home insurance went up, and sometimes it could be both. I've actually been in this situation before. I got an escrow refund and was given the choice to either keep the money or put it back into the escrow account to avoid a shortage the following year. And removing her property taxes from escrow might make her monthly payment lower, but it doesn't actually save her money. She still has to pay those taxes. Now she just has to budget them for herself. So it might feel like a fix, but it just shifts the responsibility. The same amount of money is going out either way. Also, it looks like she's eating Doritos. What flavor of Doritos do you like? I'm more of a Cooler Ranch or spicy sweet chili person. Have you ever received an escrow refund? Did it lead to a shortage later on? Let me know. Buying a house young can feel like a huge accomplishment until that dream turns into a financial nightmare.
Here's a breakdown of exactly how much my mortgage will be as a 24-year-old who makes $55,000 a year and is planning to buy a $260,000 house. I was given an estimate by my mortgage lender for how much my monthly mortgage would be, so this is inclusive of the principal, home insurance, taxes, and PMI. So jumping right into it, I decided to do a 15% down payment because I decided to keep some of the extra funds for home ownership and anything that comes up. With my credit score above 750, they offered me the market interest rate, which is around 7% right now. So at a 7% interest rate with my principal, home insurance, taxes, and PMI, my total monthly mortgage would be $1,758. My monthly income is around $3,400 a month, so this is technically around 50% of my total income, so I have considered different factors, including buying down the interest rate or even renting out one of the rooms. There's so many factors that go into buying a house, so this is your sign. Do not be discouraged about not being able to buy a house in this economy. Do what you can. And I hope that was helpful. I'll see you in the next video.
First off, I have to give her credit. To be in a position to buy a house at 24 is impressive. And I respect her transparency for sharing the real numbers. Even if you don't have any other debt, taking on a mortgage that eats up 50% of your income is very risky. The safer option will be buying a less expensive home, something that brings the mortgage closer to 30% of your income if it's possible. That's just a general recommendation though, and it can be harder to meet that number in high cost of living areas. From what I saw, she lives in Arkansas, so there might be more flexibility to find something more affordable. Renting out a room is a smart idea, but here's the thing. You can't build your budget around a tenant. What if they move out? What if they stop paying? You still have to be able to cover the full mortgage payment very easily. Do you think it's a bad idea for her to take on a mortgage that's 50% of her income? Let me know in the comments. Now she's responding to people in her comment section who are calling her out, and she has a lot more context to share. So let's hear her side of the story.
Hi budgeting people. So I posted a video this week about how much my mortgage will be once I move into my new house, and I got a lot of feedback, so let's talk about it. So firstly, a lot of people were saying that 50% of your income should not be going to your mortgage, and I completely agree. The estimate I was given is actually worst case scenario, as in that is already the property taxes assessed for when the house is on the lot. Actually, the property taxes right now are only like $90 a month for just the lot, so this is actually already accounting for next year when things are going to increase. I've decided to opt for the more expensive version, so that way when escrow actually takes those payments, they can refund me for anything that I paid over. I also saw a lot of comments about my income. Yes, technically I make $55K a year with my 9 to 5. That is my main stream of income, but I also have $5K in bonuses a year, so around $60K total. And on top of that, my company is actually doing 3 to 6% increases for inflation, so everyone's salary will be going up 3 to 6%, including mine. And on top of that, if you've been following me, you know that I had a part-time job for almost a year, and I actually recently quit, so I'm looking for another part-time job because it was just too far. I'm looking for something closer. And in addition to that, I also have a couple side hustles, including TikTok now, where I make additional income each month. Trust me when I say I know that having just one source of income is not sustainable at all. I've had multiple streams of income my entire adult life, and I know that that's the best option. Another thing that people were very concerned about was the interest rate being 7%. I know that is so high. I was an economics major, so I can tell you, we are in a buyer's market right now where the interest rates are so high that sellers are having to give incentives to get people to buy. Everyone's on the sidelines waiting for the interest rates to go down, and as soon as they do, people will pounce into the market and immediately start overbidding for these houses, and house prices will increase like crazy. So I'm opting to buy at a lower house price with the higher interest because I can always refinance. And the mortgage lender that I work with is actually going to cover all refinancing fees for the next 2 years. So if I choose to refinance in the next 2 years, they will cover that. Something else that I kind of hinted at in that video was that I plan to rent a room. This is already set in stone. I really should have clarified. I actually chose to purchase this house in this area because my sister's going to university nearby. So she's going to be moving here. We're going to be living together, and I'm excited. Lastly, I saw a comment of someone saying that my parents were probably not teaching me how to be financially literate. It was actually my dad that told me to sign the contract because he knows that this is such a strong investment for me. Long term, this house is going to be worth so much more in 30 years, and I plan to hold on to it until then.
If she agrees that a mortgage taking up 50% of your income is too high, then I'm confused as to why she's still choosing to move forward with it. That being said, I think it's great that she's done her homework to get an estimate of what her property taxes will look like after the home is built. With new construction homes, the initial property tax estimate often only reflects the value of the land, just the lot, not the value of the completed home. So once the house is built and assessed, the property taxes can jump significantly. But regardless of that, the mortgage is still going to be 50% of her income at that point, and that's not sustainable for most people. She mentioned bonuses, future raises, but unless she switches to a significantly higher paying job, those things won't close the gap. Plus, bonuses and raises can be inconsistent. And refinancing, that's not free, and there's no guarantee that rates will drop enough to justify refinancing. So never base your home buying decision on the idea of refinancing later. Now, even though I'm concerned about the high mortgage, she seems like someone who has a plan. She's aware of the risk, and I believe she'll do what it takes to stay afloat, even if that means taking on extra work. Do you think she's making a mistake with this purchase? Let me know in the comments. So there's another story we need to hear. It's about a couple and how much of their income is going to housing.
I'm a stay-at-home mom, and my husband makes about $6,400 every month. Our mortgage is $2,530. That means after our mortgage is paid and the roof's over our head, we have $3,870 left to spend in the month. Yes, we have other bills, of course, power, water, gas, groceries, eating out, fun, insurance, car maintenance, preschool, all the stuff that everyone else has, right? But $3,870 after we paid for the roof over our head seems decent. Like, I mean, we can live on that, right? I'm a stay-at-home mom. We don't have debt. We do have a car payment and a mortgage, but we don't have any consumer debt, credit card debt. I feel like if I needed more than $3,800 every month after the mortgage is paid, right? I feel like having a roof over your head is the most important thing, right? That and like healthcare coverage. If you don't have a roof over your head, you're literally homeless. So it's like, I got my house paid, right? I have my mortgage paid. Yes, you gotta pay power, water, garbage, you know, the other stuff that goes with the house, but I got my house paid. I have a roof over my head. After that's paid, I still have $3,800 left. And if I couldn't make that work, like if I couldn't be a stay-at-home and make that amount of money work for the rest of our stuff, I feel like I was spending too much money on stuff that was not necessary.
She mentioned that they don't have debt, but they have a car payment, which sounds like debt to me. However, I did see on her page that they're trying to pay it off early, which is great. They're also saving towards their child's college fund, which shows that they're thinking long term. But here's the thing, how much you have left after your mortgage is not what matters. If it's not enough to cover your other expenses and still save some money, you're gonna feel it. When you're planning to buy a home, you have to think beyond your debts. Think about things like groceries, childcare, insurance, car repairs, everything. It's not just about what you're approved for. You have to be honest with yourself about what you can comfortably afford. Now, she didn't really get specific about the numbers, but based on her other videos, it does seem like they're actually managing it well. Do you think they're spending too much of their income on their mortgage? Let me know in the comments. We've talked about a lot of the risk of overextending yourself financially, but the next clip shows how a bold move just might be the key to your long-term stability.
The average person spends 30 to 50% of their income on housing. That is not normal. In my video, I said that it's normal to spend at least a fourth of your income on housing, but the average person person spends way more than that. And that is not normal. Imagine if you have $100 and every single month you give away $30 to $50 just so that way you can have somewhere to live. And then you give away another $20 for food, gas, phone, and utilities. At the end of the month, what are you left to do? Like, what are you really left with? How are you able to keep up financially if the money that you have is not really your money? Because the moment that you get it, it's already owed to someone else. Building wealth has never been about how much you're able to make, but how much you're able to keep. If you make $150,000 in New York, but spend 40% of your income on housing alone, and then your cost of living is also high, you'll never truly become wealthy without putting in significantly more effort and output. And it's very hard for the average person to outwork the system that was put against them. Most of us would be much more wealthy and good if we moved to a place where we can actually afford. And before you say, well, my family's here, I grew up here, it doesn't matter. My clients who are affluent women have moved to Tennessee and St. Louis, Ohio, all these different places, so that way they can be able to afford where they are. And I promise you, they are thriving. They have acres of land, their kids are in good schools or in private schools, and they have honestly just made the best out of the situation because it didn't make much sense for them to live in a place that takes the majority of their income. Like, yes, it is sexy and it's glamorized to live in a cool city or to live in these overpriced condos and apartments, but you have to understand that the way to build wealth is to retain most of what you earn so that you're able to invest it and leverage it.
She brings up a really great point. Paying too much of your income towards your housing can really hold you back financially. And it's tough to build wealth when there's nothing left over after covering your basic needs. I fully agree with her. If you have an option, relocating to a more affordable area can make a huge difference. You might earn less living in a new location, but your cost of living could be way lower, which means more money left over to save and invest. Now, of course, there are other factors to consider: jobs, family, lifestyle. But if you're in a high cost city and constantly struggling to stay afloat, or you don't feel like you're living the life you want to live, it might be time to start thinking about a change. Would you ever relocate to a more affordable city to improve your financial situation? Or have you done that already? Let me know in the comments. If there's one thing today's story made very clear, it's this: homeownership is not just about buying a house. It's about making sure the house doesn't break you financially. Whether it's choosing the right mortgage, understanding escrow, or deciding the area you want to live in or the city you want to live in, these decisions can change your life. So if you're feeling stuck, I've linked some free resources in the pinned comment of this video that can help you get started. No cost, just tools that can help you move forward. And if this video helped, do me a favor, share it with someone else who needs to hear it. Now that you know about mortgage nightmares, I want you to learn about how to avoid homebuyer's remorse. Check out this video right here.